Haplogroup J equals Japheth, Part 1. But before we get too deep into the video, first I want to tell you guys about my social media platforms. So I have a Clubhouse account, and we can actually talk to one another on it. I also host Clubhouse rooms every now and then where I might talk about history and genetics of the Middle East and Africa. I have a Twitter page, a Facebook account, and a Facebook page, as well as a Instagram, all titled The Hebrew of Israel. And what I typically do on these platforms is post upcoming videos as well as slides for my presentations. And so just be on the lookout for all of that on my social media platforms. And if you want to support me financially for the channel, you can look at my Patreon as well as my PayPal and my GoFundMe. And with all of that out of the way, let's begin with the video. Haplogroup J Nakh-Degestan, Northeast Caucasian. So where is the highest proportions of haplogroup J among ancient populations? This is from Upper Paleolithic genomes reveal deep roots of modern Eurasians, and it says both Georgian hunter-gatherer samples were assigned to haplogroup J with katos belonging to the subhaplogroup J2A. And here is where we found it, in the western portion of modern-day Georgia in the Caucasus. And this is origin and diffusion of human Y chromosome haplogroup J1-M267, and it says around the time of the Neolithic demographic transition, the genome-wide ancestry of West Asian populations was geographically structured into three groups. Among them, haplogroup J-M304 is found in the Caucasus/Iranian and Anatolian hunter-gatherers and farmers. The J1B-F4306 and J1A2-PH77 branches split off at the very beginning. These are rare lineages distributed mostly among ancient and modern populations of the Caucasus, the Armenian highland, Iran, and Pakistan. Interestingly, the 13,000-year-old hunter-gatherer from the South Caucasus belongs to J1B-F4306. The J1A1B-Z18375 branch has a geographic distribution subsequently overlapping with that of the J1B-F4306 and J1A2-PH77 branches. The J1A1B-Z18375 branch is found overwhelmingly among ancient and modern populations from the Caucasus, the Armenian highland, Iran, and Anatolia. This branch constitutes the aforementioned peak of haplogroup J1-M267 frequency in the Northeast Caucasus. Haplogroup J1-M267 were found among populations living in the Caucasus and neighboring regions. Our Bayesian continuous phylogenetic analysis suggests the origin of haplogroup J1-M267 in West Asia, confirming previous assumptions. Most of the deeply diverged lineages belong to the populations from the northern latitudes of the region, in line with the finding of the late Pleistocene hunter-gatherer from the South Caucasus. Our analysis provides better statistical confidence for the origin of haplogroup J1-M267 in the area encompassing the Caucasus, the Armenian highland, and the Zagros Mountains. So, where is the highest proportions of haplogroup J among modern populations? What part of the world and what ethnic group or groups and what language do they speak? So this is parallel evolution of genes and languages in the Caucasus region. And it says, again, haplogroup J2A4B star-M67 encompassed 51 through 79% of the Y chromosomes in the English and 3 Chechen populations, Northeast Caucasus, Nakh linguistic group. Finally, haplogroup J1 star-M267 encompassed 44 through 99% of the Avar, Dargins, Kayakent, Chubachi, and Lezgians, Southeast Caucasus, Dagestan linguistic group. And excuse me for some of my mispronunciations. And so here's a map that actually shows the geographic location when it comes to the studies in the sample, or the studies, the samples in the study, excuse me. So as you can see in red, this is dealing with the Chechens, and is specifically Chechens of the Nakh group, and in green is the Dagestan or Dagestan. And so here it is right here, here it is right there, and typically the Nakh group is haplogroup J1, and the Dagestanian is haplogroup J2. So these groups have up to 99%, basically 100% of haplogroup J. So haplogroup J is found highest among the Nakh-Degestan people. So who are the Nakh-Degestan? So the Northeast Caucasian languages, also called East Caucasian or Nakh-Dagestanian languages, is a family of languages spoken in the Russian Republic of Dagestan and Chechnya and Ingushetia and the North Azerbaijan, as well as in diaspora populations in Western Europe and the Middle East. And there's like a map showing you again the Chechnya and Dagestan, where you find these Northeast Caucasian peoples. Several names have been in use for this family. The most common term, Northeast Caucasian, contrasts the three established families of the Caucasian languages: Northeast Caucasian, Northwest Caucasian, and South Caucasian. And so here's like a chart made by Nichols in 2003, basically, showing the tree of the Northeast Nakh-Dagestanian languages. And here's another chart made in 2009 by Suchels. And here's one made in 2009 as well. I think this is one of the best ones when looking at the trees, the various trees of the Northeast Caucasian languages and people. So, connections to Hurrians and Urartians. Some linguists, notably Igor M. Denkov and Starstrian, see evidence of a genealogical connection between the Northeast Caucasian family and the extinct languages Hurrian and Urartian. Hurrian was spoken in various parts of the Fertile Crescent in the 3rd and 2nd millennium BC. Urartian was the language of Urartu, a powerful state that existed between 1000 BC or earlier and 585 BC in the area centered on Lake Van in current Turkey. The two languages are classified together as the Hurro-Urartian family. Denkov proposed the name Alarduyan for the union of Hurro-Urartian and Northeast Caucasian. The Proto-Northeast Caucasian language had many terms for agriculture, and Jonah Nichols has suggested that its speakers may have been involved in the development of agriculture in the Fertile Crescent and only later moved north to the Caucasus. So the Nakh-Dagestanian is a Northeast Caucasian language, and one of the branches of the Nakh-Dagestanian is the Alordian language. So the Alordian languages are a proposed language family that encompass the Northeast Caucasian Nakh-Dagestanian languages and the extinct Urartu languages. So the term Alordian is derived from Greek, the name of an ancient ethnic group mentioned by Herodotus, which is usually equated with the peoples of the Kingdom of Urartu in modern-day Armenia, northwest Iran, and eastern Turkey. And there's a map of the ancient Urartian kingdom. And so the term Alordian languages was revived by I.M. Denkoff for the proposed language family that unites the Urartian and Northeast Caucasian languages. Worked by I.M. Denkoff and Starstrian in 1986, asserted the connection between Nakh-Dagestanian Northeast Caucasian and Urartian on the basis of comparison for their reconstruction to Proto-Nakh-Dagestanian, later published in 1994 with Nicole Levoy. So another branch of the Nakh-Dagestanian Northeast Caucasian language is the Urartian language that we mentioned. So the Urartian languages are an extinct language family of the ancient Near East, encompassing only two known languages, which is Hurrian and Urartian. And the geographic distribution is Armenia, Anatolia, Syria, Mesopotamia, and the Zagros Mountains. It is often assumed that the Urartian language, or a pre-split Proto-Urartian language, were originally spoken in the Kor-Araxes culture. So here's just a map showing Urartian in brown, and this is the typical distribution of where this language was spoken, at least early in the early Bronze Age. So the Nakh-Dagestanian Northeast Caucasian language basically came from the North Caucasian languages. So the North Caucasian languages, sometimes simply called Cossack, is a proposed language family consisting of a pair of well-established language families spoken in the Caucasus, predominantly in the north, consisting of the Northwest Caucasian family and the Northeast Caucasian family. And so here's just a map of the West Caucasian and the East Caucasian languages and people. And then here's just a pie chart, or really a tree chart, of the North Caucasian family tree of languages. And so all these branches from the Alordian, the Urartian, the Nakh-Dagestanian, and the North Caucasian all derive from the parent language, just simply called Caucasian. So the Caucasian languages comprise a large and extremely varied array of languages spoken by more than 10,000 people in the area of the Caucasus Mountains, which lie between the Black and Caspian Seas, or Sea. So 3 of these families have no current indigenous members outside the Caucasus and are considered indigenous to the area. So that's one thing that a lot of people sort of get confused about when we use the term Caucasian here in the West. Really, technically, Caucasian is one, it's a language family and it's a people group, but it's a very specific language family and a very specific people group. It's technically incorrect to call Indo-European peoples Caucasians. Caucasians are their own sort of like thing. They're their own people, their own language group. Caucasian actually isn't even classified as an Indo-European language. It's literally its own isolate. So when we use terms like, oh, Anglo-Saxons or Germans, they're Caucasian, no, this is technically incorrect. They're Indo-Europeans. People like Georgians would be Caucasians, but that's just something interesting to know about Caucasians. They're indigenous people of the Caucasus. But anyways, our focus is the Northeast Caucasian, which also called the Nakh-Dagestanian or Caspian family, with a total of about 3.8 million speakers. So linguists such as Sergei Starstrom see the Northeast Nakh-Dagestanian and Northwest Northwest Caucasian families of related and proposed uniting them in a single North Caucasian family, sometimes called Cossack or simply Caucasian. So this is from Britannia, and it says Caucasian languages. So the Caucasian languages, group of languages indigenous to Transcaucasia and adjacent areas of the Caucasus region between the Black and Caspian Seas. As used in this article, the term excludes the Indo-European, and that's what I was referring to earlier. Caucasian is its own language family. It's not Indo-European. So the Turkic languages, it excludes the Indo-European, the Turkic languages, and other languages of the area, all of which were introduced to the Caucasus in historical times. The Caucasian languages are found in the territory north and south of the Greater Caucasus region. The Caucasian languages fall into three typologically well-defined language families: the Northwest Caucasian, the Northeast Caucasian, and the South Caucasian. So the North Caucasian languages are divided into two groups: the Northwest Caucasian languages and the Northeast Caucasian languages. The Nakh-Dagestanian group consists of the Nakh and the Dagestanian languages. Some investigators subdivide the Nakh-Dagestanian languages into two independent groups: Central Caucasian language, which is the Nakh, and the East Caucasian language, which is Dagestan. So the Chechens in English live in Chechnya and Ingishnia. Both Chechen and English, which are fairly similar to one another, are written. And so this is another article dealing with the Caucasian language families. And basically the Ibero-Caucasian language family is one of the several language families spoken in the Caucasus Mountains, a narrow land bridge between the Black and Caspian Sea, home to one of the highest concentrations of language families. All are believed to have been in the area for many thousands of years. The puzzle of the isolated Caucasian languages have been attracting the attention of scholars since the 19th century. And that's what I was referring to earlier. It's an isolated language family. That's why it's not Indo-European or anything else. It's isolated. But anyways, they have tried in vain to relate Caucasian languages to languages spoken outside the Caucasus area. They did succeed, however, in establishing links between the North Caucasian languages and extinct languages that are spoken in Anatolia, in present-day Turkey and Mesopotamia, in present-day Iraq, and North Caucasian languages belong to two families: the Northwest Caucasian and the Northeast Caucasian family, which is called Nakh-Dagestanian. And so here's a book dealing with Caucasian languages as well. I just want to really, get as in depth as possible for y'all to understand when it comes to these Caucasian languages, specifically Nakh-Dagestani. So this book is called Current Trends in Caucasian, East European, and Inter-Asian Linguistics. So it says Nakh-Dagestanian, Northeast Caucasian. Of the three Caucasian language families, only the Nakh-Dagestanian has a family tree of comparable complexity to that of Indo-European. The three Nakh languages, which is Chechenian, English, and the outlier, the Bats, probably go back to a deep division in the family, and many experts believe that Proto-Nakh split off somewhat earlier than the ancestors of the Dagestanian branches. The ultimate linguistic relations of Nakh-Degestanian, or Northeast Caucasian, have yet been established with certainty, but there is general consensus about its internal structure. The Nakh-Degestanian languages form a family, the Nakh languages are a family, and the Dagestanian and Nakh are sisters and comprise the two branches of Northeast Caucasian. So when they mean they're sisters, they both come from Nakh-Degestanian, and one split here and the other split here. That's what they mean. So Dinkoff and Starstrom in 1986 assumed that Urartu is related to Nakh-Degestanian and assemble punitive cognate sets so as to maximize similarities between the two families. So the Alderian, the Urartu, the Nakh-Degestanian, and Caucasian in general are all associated with Haplogroup J in ancient times. This is from How Eurasia Was Born, and it says, the Northeast Caucasian language family seems to show clear links to ancient Eastern Anatolia, as most subclades of J1-Z1842 TMRCA is 4300 BCE, can be linked to the Armenia highlands in present-day Azerbaijan, precisely fitting the exact location of the Kora Araxes culture, which is 3400 BCE through 2000 BCE. Three subclades of it, J1-ZS3042 TMRCA is 3500 BCE, and J1-ZS5658 TMRCA is 2800 BCE, and J1-ZS2872, which was 2800 BCE, and J1-Z5353 TMRCA 2500 BCE are widespread among Northeast Caucasian groups, suggests that Northeast Caucasian languages to have originated from the Kora Araxes culture, as ancient J1 subclades also seem to have been present in the ancient Levant as well. This supports the existence of the Alderian language family, linking Hurrian to Northeast Caucasian. Regarding the Northwest Caucasian language family, broader analysis of other genetic components by Japheth confirmed that Northwest Caucasian populations also originate from south of the Caucasus, thus from within the cradle of the Neolithic Middle East. This also supports their supposed relations to the Indo-European family, and suggests that their homeland must have been in close proximity with that of the Indo-European homeland in eastern Anatolia. On the other hand, it must have been the west of the Northeast Caucasian homeland, as the latter seemed to have covered the entire Kora Araxes culture area. The presence of J2-M67 in Northwest Caucasian populations also points to the origins south of the Caucasus, although as J2-M67 is present in human populations belonging to both Northwest Caucasian and Northeast Caucasian language groups. It is somewhat ambiguous to which language family did the population that introduced it in the region belongs to. So, to this day, the highest percentage of Haplogroup J among these Caucasian groups, like the Nakh-Degestanian, specifically the Chechen and the English. So this, again, is from Parallel Evolution of Genes and Languages in the Caucasus region, and it says, we also employ a lexiconal statistical approach to reconstruct the history of the languages of the North Caucasian family, spoken by the Caucasus populations. We found a different major haplogroup to be prevalent in each of the four sets of populations that occupy distinct geographic regions and belong to different linguistic branches. The haplogroup frequency correlated with geographical and even more strongly with language. Within haplogroups, a number of haplotype clusters were shown to be specific to individual populations and languages. The data suggests a direct origin of Caucasus male lineages from the Near East, followed by high levels of isolation, differentiation, and genetic drift. Insight 2. Comparison of genetic and linguistic reconstructions covering the last few millennia showed striking correspondence between the topology and dates of the respective gene and language trees, and with documented historical events. Overall, in the Caucasus region, unmatched levels of gene language coevolution occurred within geographical isolated populations, probably due to its mountainous terrain. Again, haplogroup J2A4B*M67 comprised 51 through 79% of the Y chromosomes in the English and three Chechen populations, Northeast Caucasus Nakh linguistic group. Finally, haplogroup J1*M267 comprised 44 through 99% of the Avars, Dargins, Kayakents, Kabachi, and Luzgians, Southeast Caucasus Dagestanian linguistic group. And again, here's just the area that we're dealing with, this area of the Northeast Caucasus, where you find these Chechens and English, basically these Nakh-Dagestanian groups. The MDS plot of pairwise genetic distance showed strong regional clustering separating populations from Europe, the Near East, and the Caucasus, with samples from the Caucasus grouping closer to the Near East samples than the European ones. Of those three clusters, the Caucasus appeared to be the most diverse, with distinguishable subgroup variation within it. The first subgroup included Dagestanian speakers, Avar, Dargins, Kabachi, Kayakents. The second, the Nakh speakers, three Chechen populations, and the English, and the third, Abkhazo-Abagian speakers. This plot illustrates both the common Near Eastern background of all Caucasus populations and the pronounced intra-Caucasus genetic differentiation into groupings that corresponded well with their linguistic affiliation. So here is, all these Caucasus or Caucasian populations. Of course, they're all clustered very close together. And then next to them will be Near Eastern populations, which is fairly interesting, and we'll touch on more on that later. But here, when it comes to the linguistic tree, we have the North Caucasian that we talked about earlier, and then the Northeast Caucasian, and then it breaks into the sister branches of the Nakh and the Dagestani, and then you have groups like the Chechens and the English and the Avars and so on and so forth. And this also interestingly matches what we see genetically as well, that basically the genetics, the genetic tree and the linguistic tree match each other. So that's very interesting. So combining genetic and linguistic findings, we now propose a model of the evolution of the Caucasus population. The final tree was obtained by merging the genetic clusters with the background linguistic tree. We concluded that the Caucasus gene pool originated from a subset of the Near Eastern pool due to a Upper Paleolithic or Neolithic migration, followed by a significant genetic drift, but probably due to isolation in the extremely mountainous landscape. Very interesting. We'll touch more deeper on that later. And when it comes to Y-DNA paternal haplogroups, these Caucasian populations have the highest amounts of haplogroup J. So looking at this is J-M304, and here are the two branches. And you have the English and the Chechens, and they have up to 87%. And then you have other groups like the Avars and the Dargians and the Kobachi, and they have up to like around 44 to 99%. So they have very, very high amounts of haplogroup J. And here's just another chart right here showing up to 98.5% all the way to like 50%, 48%. Here's the references, by the way, seen in, again, Caucasian populations, Dargins, Avars, etc. And here is J2. That was, by the way, J1. Here's J2, seen up to 87.4%. Here are the references, seen in English and Chechens, as I said earlier. Caucasian populations have some of the highest amounts of haplogroup J. So what have we gathered with this study? One, the origins of haplogroup J is in the Caucasus. Two, the oldest samples of haplogroup J is with the Caucasus hunter-gatherers. Three, the oldest language family with haplogroup J are Caucasians, specifically Nakh-Degestan. Four, the highest modern ethnic groups with haplogroup J are Caucasian populations, specifically the Nakh-Degestan. So there is a strong association with haplogroup J and the Caucasus and Caucasian groups. In the past, we discussed about haplogroup J and ancient Indo-Europeans as well as modern Indo-Europeans. Now we should look into another perspective of haplogroup J being Caucasian in origin as well. And remember, Caucasian is neither Indo-European nor Semitic. It's its own isolated language, its own people group, etc. So let's look deeper into the connection between Caucasian and haplogroup J. But this is where we specifically end haplogroup J, Nakh-Degestanian, Northeast Caucasian. The English. So the English were mentioned as one of the groups with the highest amounts of haplogroup J. Therefore, let's study them and get to know them better. So the English is a Northeast Caucasian language. The English are a Northeast Caucasian native ethnic group of the North Caucasus, mostly inhabiting their nativity, Ingushtania. Ingushtania is a republic of Russia located in the North Caucasus of Eastern Europe. The republic is part of the North Caucasian Federal District and shares land borders with the country of Georgia to its south. So there is Ingushtania right here. It's basically north of the Caucasus. They say it's in Russia, but also keep in mind it's also in the Caucasus. That can probably be confusing. So, according to Leonti Mevroni, the 11th century Georgian chronicler, the word Caucasian is derived from the Venakh ancestor Kavoskus. According to Professor George Anach Batez of Ilian State University, the Vanakhs are the ancient natives of the Caucasus. It is noteworthy that according to genealogical table drawn up by Leonti Mevroni, the legendary forefather of the Vanakhs was Kavoskus, hence the name Kavoskians, one of the ethnocons met in the ancient Georgian written sources signifying the ancestors of the Chechens and English. As appears from the above, the Vanakhs, at least by name, are presented as the most Caucasian people of all the Caucasians. Caucus, Kavaskians, basically Caucasians, in the Georgian historical tradition. In an article in Science magazine, Bernice Wethrich states that American linguist Dr. Joanna Nichols has used language to connect modern people of the Caucasus region to the ancient farmers of the Fertile Crescent, and that her research suggests that farmers of the region were Proto-Nakh-Degestanians. Nichols is quoted as stating that the Nakh-Degestanian languages are the closest thing we have to a direct continuation of the cultural and linguistic continuity that gave rise to Western civilization. 10,000 through 8,000 BC. So according to Bernice Wetherich's article, Peering into the Past with Words, Joanna Nichols showed that linguistic evidence indicates that ancestors of Nakh people migrated to the slopes of the Caucasus from the Fertile Crescent, where farming and raising sheep and cattle had been discovered. Nichols stated that the Nakh-Degestanian languages are the closest thing we have to a direct continuation of the cultural and linguistic community that gave rise to Western civilization. Anthropologist Henry Harpington of the University of Utah is impressed by her research. So basically, she's saying that the peoples of the Nakh-Degestani were first in the Fertile Crescent, but then, of course, they migrated to the Caucasus, bringing ideas of farming and certain terms and phrases and tools and things of that nature. So it's fairly interesting. So 6,000 through 4,000 BC, the Neolithic era. Pottery is known to the region. Old settlements near Ali Urut and Majais, discovered in the modern times, revealed tools made out of stone axes, polished stones, stone knives, stones with holes drilled in them, clay dishes, etc. Settlements made out of clay bricks discovered in the plains. In the mountains, there were discovered settlements made out of stones surrounded by walls. Some of them dated back to 8,000 BC. Now, through 4,000 through 3,000 BC, you have the core Araxes culture, which dominate in Ingestania. Invention of the wheel was 3000 BC, horseback riding, metalworks, copper, gold, silver, iron, dishes, armor, daggers, knives, arrow tips, etc. So here is just a map of the core Araxes culture. As you can see here in red, this is the zone of the core Araxes culture. And we'll learn more about that culture at another time. But the genetics of Ingestania population, the English have 89% of J2Y DNA, which is the highest known frequency in the world. So the English have the highest known frequency of haplogroup J2, and so in the world. And J2 is closely associated with the Fertile Crescent, which is interesting with what we just read about from Jenna Nichols. And so in 1901, Scottish Geographical Magazine on page 570 through 572 mentions the English are considered very ancient inhabitants of the Caucasus, but their origin is lost in obscurity and even contradictory traditions. The complexion of the English is swarthy. He is tall and slight in form. The Soviet-Russian anthropologist and scientist N.Y. Mar V.V. Bonosk, M.R. Muchalvi, I.M. Dankov, I.E. Korupnov, and G.A. Meliskovi wrote, among English and Caucasian type is preserved better than among any other North Caucasian nation. Basically saying that the English look very Caucasian. So Professor of Anthropology V.V. Bonovsk and Gorznovsky uh, Rabochi on volume 5 in 1935, Professor G.F. Debs recognized that English Caucasian anthropologic type is the most Caucasian among Caucasians. So here are the English people. As they said, some of them can be sort of swarthy, or as I would term it, kind of tanned skinned, but their hair is dark. That's also another way that they could be describing them as swarthy, being dark haired as well. And as you can see, their features, and they have very unique features in a way. They have a very long nose, very angular face, straight hair, of course, and it is dark. But of course, as they grow older, it becomes gray. But a lot of these people do have dark hair and very long noses. In a way, their noses actually look kind of aquiline or hooked in a way. So they have a very particular type. So in summary, the English people are a Northeast Caucasian group. They speak a Nakh-Degestan language. According to their oral history, they come from the Fertile Crescent, coming from the Fertile Crescent to the Caucasus. And genetically, they have the highest amount of haplogroup J2, up to 89% in the world. And phenotypically, they are Caucasian, white to tan skin, black to brunette hair, dark eyes, sometimes even blue, and a hooked nose. And so this is where we'll end with the English, the Chechens. The Chechens are mentioned as one of the groups with the highest amount of haplogroup J. Therefore, let's study this group and get to know them better. So Chechen is a Northeast Caucasian language. The Chechens, historically known as the Kisik and the Durid-Zouks, are an Northeast Caucasian ethnic group of the Nakh peoples, native to the North Caucasus in Eastern Europe. Chechen and English peoples are collectively known as the Vanaks, which means our people in Chechen, since the 1930s, and were known as the Nakhashki prior. Chechnya, officially the Chechen Republic, is a constituent republic of Russia situated in the North Caucasus in Eastern Europe, close to the Caspian Sea. And so here is a map. Here is a map of Chechnya, and it's close to Ingeshnya. So it's in Russia, but again, keep in mind Russia is also technically in Caucasus. But so prehistory and origin. The Chechens are one of the Nakh peoples who have lived in the highlands of the North Caucasus region since prehistory. There is archaeological evidence of historical continuity dating back to 3000 BC, as well as evidence pointing to their ancestors migrating from the Fertile Crescent in 10,000 through 8000 BC. Migration from the Fertile Crescent, 10,000 through 8000 BC. Joanna Nichols holds that the Durizouks were descended from extremely ancient migrations from the Fertile Crescent to the Caucasus, perhaps due to population or political pressures back in the Fertile Crescent. Others who believe the so-called Urartu version, such as George Anach Bazak and Amajed Jumeneko, still holds that these original migrants contributed to both the genetic and cultural traits of the modern English and Chechens, but that the primary ancestors were Nakh-speaking migrants from what became northeastern Urartu. So again, they have a similar history and tradition, such as the English, and this is starting to be consistent, which is interesting. So the core axis culture, towns were built in the area that is now Chechnya as early as 8000 BCE. Pottery too came around the same time, and so did stone weaponry, stone utensils, stone jewelry items, etc., as well as clay dishes. This period was known as the Kora Araxes culture. And again, here's a map of the Kora Araxes culture, and it is in the geographic area of Chechnya. And here's another type of culture within the region, the Kayakent culture. The trend of a highly progressive Caucasus continued as early as 3000 through 4000 BCE. Evidence of metalworking, including copper, as well as more advanced weaponry, daggers, arrowheads found, as well as armor, knives, etc. This period is referred to as the Kayakent culture, or Chechnya during the Copper Age. Horseback riding came around 3000 BCE, probably having diffused from contact with Indo-European speaking tribes to the north. Towns found in this period are often not found in ruins, but rather on the outskirts of, or even inside, modern towns of both Chechnya and Ingusnia, suggesting much continuity, which is very interesting how these ancient towns, like, they still exist, they just built around the towns or within the towns. But anyways, there is bone evidence suggesting that raising of small sheep and goats occurred. Clay and stone were used for all buildings, for all building purposes. Agriculture was highly developed, as evident by the presence of copper flint blades with wooden and bone handles. And here's another culture that's important, the Koban culture. The Koban culture, Iron Age culture, was the most advanced culture in Chechnya before recorded history, and also the most well known. It first appeared between 1100 and 1000 BCE. The remains include dwellings, cobble bridges, altars, iron objects, bones, and clay and stone objects. There were sickles and stone grain grinders. Grains that were grown included wheat, rye, and barley. Cattle, sheep, goats, donkeys, pigs, and horses were kept. There were shops where artisans worked on and sold pottery, stone casting, bone carving, and stone carving. There is evidence of an advanced stage of metallurgy. There was deification and professionals organized within clans. Joneka argues that while all these cultures probably were made by people included among the genetic ancestors of the Chechens, it was either the Koban or the Karaak culture that was the first culture made by the cultural and linguistic ancestors of the Chechens, meaning the Chechens first arrived in their homeland around 3000 through 4000 years ago. However, the majority of historians disagree, holding the Chechens to have lived in their present-day lands for over 10,000 years. So there's various interpretations on the relationship with Urartu and Urartians and Hurrians. Igor Dankov, Fritz Hommel, and others have suggested ties between the Proto-Urartian language and Proto-Northeastern Caucasian languages, leading to the proposal of the Alarduian language family. Abajed Jonica notes in his book, The Chechens, some authorities believe that the Nakh nation was an offspring of the Hurrians and Urartians, builders of the magnificent civilizations of the Near East, and had a profound influence upon other cultures of the region. According to some modern data, Chechens are genetically, linguistically, and anthropologically considered the descendants of the Hurrians and Urartians. And so here is, by the way, the the kingdom of the Hurrians, and we'll touch more on the Hurrians as well at another time. But here is also Urartu, and it's basically concentrated in the same territory of northern Near East, but the south of the Caucasus, east of Anatolia, and west of Iran. So, according to the opinion of Caucasus folklorist Abjad Jonaka, it is certain that the Nakh constituted an important component of the Hurrian Urartian tribes in the Transcaucasus and played a role in the development of their influential cultures. Abjad Janamika notes in his book, The Chechens, some authorities believe that the Nakh nation was an offspring of the Hurrians and Urartians, builders of the magnificent civilizations of the Near East that had a profound influence upon other cultures of the region. According to some data, Chechens are genetically, linguistically, and anthropologically considered the descendants of the Hurrians and Urartians. And I just want to show another map of the range of the Hurrians. So what you see in this dark reddish brown is basically the territory of the Hurrians. And what you see here in this orange, this sort of dark orange, is Urartu. And so that's basically the same area. So here is this is an English translation from a book in Russian, basically explaining about the Chechen nation in connection to the Hurrians and other Caucasian civilizations and cultures. So it reads, "This sounds extremely unexpected, but it is. The Chechen nation is the ethnic root part of the Caucasian race, one of the oldest sources of human civilization. The fundamental principle of spirituality passed through the Hurrian, Mitanni, and Urartian cultures." And here's the source, by the way, that this English translation is from. And here's the ISBN number. And here is the territory of the Mitanni, as they said. Here is the Hurrians and the Urartians, basically connecting the Chechens with these ancient Near Eastern civilizations. And here's another English translation from Russian. And it says, most of the historical facts indicate that the language of the ancient state of Urartu is closer to the modern Chechen one. It is highly probable that the ancestors of modern Chechens moved to the territory of the North Caucasus from Anatolia from Urartu. And here's another English translation. This is from the ATLAS Monthly Geography and Exploration magazine in March of 2003, issued 120.2. And it says, today Urartiists do not deny the kinship of the Chechens with the Urartians. The kinship of the Hurrians, Urartians, Chechens is confirmed by those who studied it. Hence, the following conclusion follows. Chechens are Urartians. Urartians is the remaining branch of the Chechens in Asia Minor. Actually, its structure grammatically features completeness and grammar of classes, etc. Urartian and Chechen are similar to each other. And this is yet again another English translation of a book from Russia, and it says, Chechens are not actually Caucasians, but ethnically and linguistically sharply separated from other mountain peoples of the Caucasus. They are the offspring of the great Hyperborean Paleo-Asian tribe displaced to the Caucasus, which extended from Turan through northern Mesopotamia into Canaan. The Chechen is a leaping northern offspring of the Proto-language, which once occupied a more southern territory, namely in the pre-Armenian Alderian Urartu, Western Asia. Traces of Chechens stay in the country of Ararat or Urartu are found in topology. This alone explains the strongly Alordian Urartian Armenoid character of the Chechen language, which deviates from the normal Caucasian sound system. And so here is Urartu. Most of those sources were saying over and over again that the Chechens are descendants of the Urartians, or that they're a branch of Urartians. So here's the kingdom of Urartu. It's a very nice map. And here's basically the extent going all the way from the southern Caucasus and Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, all the way to Turkey, Anatolia, Iran. So it was a very large kingdom. And so Chechens belong to Haplogroup J2 at 56.7%, which is associated with Mediterranean, Caucasian, and Fertile Crescent populations. The overwhelming bulk of Chechen J2 is of the subclade J2A4B star, which is J2-M67, of which the highest frequencies by far are found among Nakh peoples. Again, J2 is highest among the Nakh peoples, Caucasian peoples. But anyways, Chechens were 55.2% according to Balowski study, while the English were 87.4%, and the English have the highest of J2 in the world. So overall, studies have shown consistently that Chechens are most closely related to the English, Sartians, and other North Caucasians, occasionally showing a kinship to other peoples in some tests. A Balowski study showed the English to be the Chechens' closest relatives by far. And so here's actually a map of haplogroup J2, and it is indeed high within the Caucasus, as you can see right here, exactly where the Chechens and the English would be, and as well as in Anatolia. So everything does line up. And so here are images of Chechen peoples. They are also tanned with long noses and very dark hair. Again, Caucasian populations. And like I said, they again have white, fairly light skin, and their hair can also be somewhat curly, but mostly straight. And they can have green eyes as well. But a lot of these guys, as you can see when it comes to the images, a lot of them are militants. So when you look at Chechens online, you're going to find a lot of people in the various military uniforms. But Chechens, they are tanned, white-skinned, dark black hair, and they also have a particular phenotype as well, like a long nose, dark-haired, even brunette-haired as well. And their faces seem to be quite long in a way, and some can even have high cheekbones as well. But these are just Chechen soldiers, Chechen men, and some of them sort of look like Americans in a sense as well. But again, it's very close to Russia, and some Chechens can even have blue eyes as well, and green eyes, and they can often be pale as well in skin tone. But in summary, 1, what have we learned? The Chechens are a Northeast Caucasian people. 2, they speak a Nakh-Degestan language. 3, they have connections to Urartian civilizations and language. 4, genetically they have the highest amount of haplogroup J2 and they're related to the English. And 5, phenotypically they are Caucasian. Again, basically white to tan skin, black to brunette hair, dark eyes and blue eyes, and very long nosed or hook nosed. So here's where we'll end with the Chechens. And this is where we end haplogroup J equals Japheth, part 1. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe and share the video and click the bell. Leave a comment for any questions you might have and follow my social media accounts. And with all of that out of the way, have a great day and shalom.